and welcome to Trader Talk TV Live, our special edition, our end of year special around what happened in 2014 and what's going to happen next year. So we already had our first episode regarding the look back of the year. This episode will focus on the year ahead, 2015 predictions. Before we do that, I want the panel to introduce themselves briefly and then we'll just jump straight into it.
Hi there everyone, pleasure to be here. Gareth Davis, co-founder and CEO at AdBrain.
Hi everybody, I'm Zuzana Galinska from Oracle Marketing Cloud.
Hi, Casper Schlickham from Zaxis.
Okay, thank you very much. As ever, this is filmed in front of a very large studio audience. Hundreds of people are here. It's amazing. So our first question would basically be around reflections. I want to hear basically your highlight of the year, and then we'll talk about predictions. So Gareth, what was your highlight of your professional career?
Professional highlight? The last 12 months?
Yeah.
Oof. Staying alive.
Staying alive, okay.
Yeah. And launching our platform.
Oh, you mean like that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you mean like it's a business, right? Okay, sure. I thought someone was out to get you.
No. That's all been swept under the carpet.
Okay, Susanna.
So my highlight, can I do two?
You can do two.
Great. So my first highlight, actually it doesn't fall into this year, so okay, I'll just do one. So my highlight was an acquisition highlight, Oracle buying BlueSky.
Okay. Casper?
Yeah, I think that we've got two highlights I'd talk about. Two highlights I'd highlight. Two highlights I'd talk about from the past year.
You've got lovely highlights in here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you noticed, Kieran. I did them for you. Actually, I did them for Nigel.
Yeah, I know. There he is. Two buddies, huh?
And both of them were acquisitions. Well, one was an investment, one was an acquisition. So Zaxis, we did our first acquisition during the year, which was, of course, Banner Connect, which has been a really interesting addition to our business and our platform. And of course, the investment we made, both cash and also with OpenAdStream in AppNexus, which has been also, I think, game-changing for us in the industry.
Okay. So I'm obviously going to ask your opinions about various things you see happening this year, but we will stay very tight to my agenda because I am the actual moderator of this panel. So first thing we want to talk about is Facebook. Wow, Facebook and ad tech, they're really making a big play. What is your perspective? What will they do over the next 12 months? Will they take on Google and the whole data wars thing?
I think they already have, right? I mean, 66%. So I'm obviously going to take it with a mobile first lens.
Absolutely. Mobile first.
I'd be doing myself an injustice if I didn't, Kieran.
I have a mobile phone, by the way.
Good man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just for the record.
Snake.
And a tablet.
Good man. So you're a qualified panelist and moderator.
I am.
So, good man.
I'm a cross-device guy.
Yeah. Good, even better.
And a Kindle.
Love it. So to answer your question, 66% of net revenue on Facebook is currently mobile. Mobile is obviously the focus of the business in terms of their user experience, in terms of the way they collect data about their users. I think the Atlas news obviously was pretty exciting. Probably, could have been guessed, right? That something was happening. The rumblings had been around for a while. The most interesting piece is around the unification of single sign-in, login data being pushed out across their network. The big question is, can Facebook take that data to publishers, have publishers share data and scale that out? The Atlas footprint is obviously pretty small, given the Microsoft acquisition of WriteDown. So I think there's a lot of work for Facebook to convince publishers at scale. But critically, they already have, through the acquisition of WhatsApp, they essentially have an operating system in mobile with a huge amount of data already at the user level. They've obviously got the rest of their unified data from the Facebook property. And I think looking forward, if you look at the number of open authentication tools they have, the hooks into the app universe is phenomenal. I think the guys at Google are pretty concerned about this. Search.
From Google here? No.
No. So, I think it says a lot though for us all, right? How do, particularly in the programmatic industry, how do we shift away from what's been a cookie-driven space to a cross-device world where users are inherently in-app, not different environment for tracking and data. So I think a lot of ruffled feathers this year, and I think the implications next year are going to be pretty profound, both on the way people invest in technology, the way they build out their teams. I think there's going to be a lot of acquisitions. I think it's going to be an exciting year in the world of mobile and cross-device.
So is Facebook the big thing for next year in terms of, as Gareth pointed out, various points in terms of building ad tech, acquiring ad tech, and just basically becoming a bigger player in the space? Because obviously Google obviously realised the importance of having that infrastructure layer there as well as the media business. Do you think that would be the big story in 2015?
So I think the core thing that Facebook have is the users and the scale of that audience, and this acquisition just enables them to take that data and do so much more with it. It's been really interesting to watch their messaging and positioning around Atlas. Initially it's just going to be an ad serving solution. I mean, I remember back at the Microsoft days in 2006 when Atlas was dying to become a DSP, and there was lots of work happening behind the scenes, and unfortunately that never happened. So it'd be really interesting to see how Facebook resurrect that. But I think the big story for Facebook is the data they have, how this enables them to further port that data off their own environment and into other environments, into mobile, into potentially into other publisher environments, and really start to leverage that as their sort of key currency. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting one to watch.
It's interesting though, Casper. We had Facebook on our New York event and our Paris event, and they were not quite alluding to the launch of a DSP, but it seems it's inevitable that we'll build that into Atlas. And then it's about, here's our DSP, here's our data, you can only use our data via DSP. Are we now in an era of the closed ecosystem, and how much of a factor will that be in 2015 for an organisation like WPP who obviously want an open ecosystem?
Yeah, we definitely do, and I think we talked about the previous panel talked a lot about that very articulately. I mean, I think just to talk about Facebook briefly. I mean, there's obviously been a lot of noise about what they're doing, and I think they've PR'd the whole Atlas thing very, very well. There's a lot of work still to be done on actually making it a reality. I mean, as you say, Atlas has a very small installed base now, a very small footprint. The alternative is formidable. Right? I mean, it's not like DFA or DFP are sort of ad servers without back-end technology. They also have links into data, search data in that case. So it's not a sort of a, look, we have all the audience and all the great Facebook data, and you're up against something that has nothing. You're up against something else which is pretty compelling. And so I don't think it's quite as, there's going to have to be a lot of work done by Facebook to convince agencies, clients, publishers that that's the right way to go. And interestingly, I think certainly on the advertiser side, they're going to need to work with the agencies very closely on that, because changing ad servers is a big deal. You lose a lot of data, you have to spend a lot of time on it with your clients. It's not something you can do without the agency usually, and so it's going to be very interesting to see how that actually develops. In terms of the closed ecosystem, obviously there's Google, where Facebook are going. We hear AOL and Yahoo and various others. I think realistically there are only, the extent to which you can create a closed ecosystem depends on the extent to which you have agency demand. And there's very few companies that have to be on the media plan. Right? You can't have a media plan these days without Google and Facebook on that media plan somewhere. Right? And respectfully to AOL, it is possible to have a media plan without AOL on it.
Controversial.
Yeah, so controversial, especially in Europe. But I pick AOL, but just because they've also been very public about their closed ecosystem. So I think it depends who you are, and depends how you deploy it, whether or not it's agency friendly or not. And again, because of all those other reasons, just because Facebook want to launch a closed ecosystem doesn't necessarily mean it won't be agency friendly in some way. I do think that ultimately it's a problem for us and the agencies, because obviously, as we've said before, for us it's about deploying agnostically across channels, across inventory, the plan that we want to deploy, and having to go into different systems for that is difficult and annoying from a workflow process point of view.
I'm not allowing you to hook at all the different sets of data from the disparate systems and making sense of it. That must be like a nightmare in terms of
Yeah, well, increasingly that's what our clients are asking us to do, not just on the analytics side, which is where we've always done that. We've taken the data we can and created a sort of, as close to possible sensible picture across what's happening across the media plan, but now also in terms of actually actioning against segments and buying segments and delivering media against those audiences.
Gareth, you've written about the data wars, and Boris from OpenWeb talked about the data wars at ATS London, about the upcoming data wars. Are we sort of seeing the phony war is over, now we're in 2015, it's going to kick off completely?
Bleak dystopian
It's a dystopian future. It's like post-apocalyptic data land. It's like horrible,
Yeah, I think absolutely the focus, increasingly if we think of, what's odd, back to Casper's point about footprint, it's a complex task, shifting ad servers, right? Your tagging infrastructure. This is low-level technology. This is commoditized technology. the willingness or the resource within most organizations on the buy and the sell side or agency side to shift that, I think is questionable. So we've got an app nexus little from Nigel in the corner.
Leave that next alone, right? We're going to be bullying them, hey. We've only got 250 million in funding. Right?
Absolutely. But to answer your question, I think if we think rather simplistically of ad serving 1.0 as that basic ad serving layer, that infrastructure has been built, it's been scaled, it's been replicated. Programmatic has rebuilt the pipes from an impression by impression cookie level environment for trading impressions, and a huge amount of innovation has come. We all know the story. I think moving forward, we're certainly in our engagements with brands, with publishers, and with technology companies, seeing increasing focus on owning data, particularly in a mobile world where the IDFA, the Android ID is good for a year. The cookie crumbles in 30 days. So the guys that realize how valuable their mobile audiences are, I'm going back to mobile, but across the board, that care about audience. A, they want to unify the audience. B, they don't want to throw that data over the fence. So whilst we're actually hugely excited about the Facebook Atlas news, I think it's huge validation of the need for marketers to think and publishers about their audience in a cohesive way, understand the context of the device and the environment for targeting and optimization. I think there's going to be a lot of paranoid publishers that are trying to build a moat. Maybe they'll speak with the lovely lady on my left and many other companies to try and bridge that gap. They don't want to throw too much data across the fence. Already, if I, as a buyer, sync my data, or as a publisher with DFA, there's an amazing amount when you look into the legals of those contracts that can actually happen with your data. I think for the most part, you can trust Google and Facebook, but
can you?
Well, I just to keep it controversial, I have a huge problem with all of that. And the reason I do is because we sort of bandy about this term data, like it's a single thing or a thing. There are so many different types of data, all of which have different value associated with them, all of which have different ownership structures, all of which have different business models associated. They're used for different things. Just sort of saying, we're going to have a data war, which sort of implies like, it's my data against your data, or there's sort of, it just doesn't make any sense. It's not how data works in the real world, and I agree that I think people need to educate themselves about the types of data they have and the types of data that they need to do what they want to do ultimately, because just having data on its own is nothing. I mean, there's, marketers have bigger use cases than just hoarding data. This whole big data thing drives me crazy.
I know. Me too.
It's like it's like data for the sake of mad, right? I mean, just data for the sake of data is preposterous, right? And then coming back to the business models, if you think a little bit more carefully about the types of data that you have and how you want to use those types of data, you also end up in a conversation about which of those pieces of data should I only use for myself. Which of them should I try and sell or make available at a price, and which of them are actually so invaluable that I can give them away for some sort of, there's some sort of other benefit to me.
Yeah.
And ultimately, publishers in particular, I think they tend to still value data the way they value inventory. You can only sell every impression once and never twice. Whereas data you can make available in lots of different ways to lots of different parts of the ecosystem, and you should be looking at how each of those are engaging.
Okay.
It's much more nuanced than just saying it's all,
We could sink in a whole, quicksand of data. Let's just change the track here a little bit. Let's talk about specific sort of, areas.
Data.
I know, I'm going to talk about your
just
data.
as we get to you.
No, I'm going to start with you, Suzanne. Don't worry. It's about you. It's all about you now. So we just change the tack slightly, right? And be specific to the person's wants and needs and their area of expertise.
Data.
Yeah. Data, right? Well, what I want to talk about is your role now at Oracle, right? Because it's really interesting. Oracle buys Blue Sky, big MarTech company, marketing cloud, big enterprise entity, buys ad tech, right? And it's now moving its way into the space. Is 2015 the year that we see sort of all these big enterprise players making a real go at building a business around the agencies, around the advertisers? And how the hell are you doing that with the agencies? Given that SaaS models are kind of like, horrible. The agencies don't like that.
So I'd say it's already started. You just need to look across that enterprise player space. Us, Salesforce, Adobe, we're all leaning in and have already been on an acquisition trail, and there's definitely more of that to come. In terms of, how do we bridge between the typical sort of on-premise enterprise sales models, moving into SaaS and specifically moving into doing business with what, you know, quite frankly to Oracle is a completely new community of clients, the marketing, the CMOs, the media agencies. So how do we sort of bridge into that? I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think that there is every desire, not just from, you know, ourselves and the other enterprise players to step in, but from the agency side to step up. We've seen a really massive movement, and I've spent the last 6 months talking at holding group levels. We've seen a real movement from agencies really leaning into the space, really wanting to get on board and step up and understand what else is there beyond sort of representing the media piece. So what about consulting around technology? What about the deployment of technology? What about managing services of technology? They're at different stages of journeys, I would say.
So you're kind of trying to say is you're trying to evolve, have agencies evolve the model beyond just media buying and being more, you know, looking into MarTech in a consultative way, like the Cyprian Nitro acquisition, for instance. You know, that's leans into that publisher looking beyond just media buying and execution and creative and being more about consultative. Is that so? The conversations you're having with the top guys at the holding agency, is it more about that? About how they can open up new revenue models, how they can make more money effectively?
So it's definitely a desire to step in and take some role in that space. As I said, the different groups are at different stages of that journey, and there isn't necessarily a sort of one size fits all. So some agencies are looking at it from a, you know, they can take value out of the consultancy. A lot of agencies, their clients are coming to them. So let's just take a DMP. Their clients are coming to them and expecting them to support, you know, the DMP validation and help support that RFP process. So agencies naturally have to upskill and get into that. Some are looking more on the services side. So once the technology is, you know, deployed in-house, how can they support and manage that on behalf of their clients? So there's definitely a new industry growing around it. And also agencies are very acutely aware that the you know, the systems integrators, the Accentures, the Deloittes, they're all, you know, really moving forward with this. They're building digital teams, they're building that kind of digital ad tech capabilities on their end. So if agencies don't move up, you know, certainly those guys will move into their space. So it's a really interesting time.
So you're the right woman in the right place at the right time.
It is
you're bringing
amazing.
it all together. You're the lightning rod for
It's
this
amazing.
industry.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I love. What I love about this woman.
Again.
Casper, let's talk about, actually, she was at the start. Casper, let's talk about Zaxis. I mean, the model's evolved over the last number of years. Brian, you know, you're a programmatic media company, I think, which you are now. I was just wondering where, so, you know, it's a huge organisation now within the WPP, and a very important part of the company, right? I'm just wondering how it's evolving, and in 2015, what are we going to see from that organisation? I mean, you obviously have, you know, WPP made strategic investments in various companies, acquired various companies, which is going to help you build out your sort of solution. But where are you going to sit in the whole group? And what's the plan?
Yeah, sure.
Tell me the plan.
I'll tell you the plan. Tell everyone the plan.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Sure. Well, the plan hasn't changed from what it's always been. I mean, we've always been called a trade desk, and I keep saying this every time, and I know some people disagree with me. Where are they? Here somewhere.
We've never
really worked. We've never operated or worked as a trade desk. We've always been an audience business selling audience products. So putting together inventory, technology, data, and people to create products. And you know, we receive IOs from our agencies to buy those products, right? So
you're an ad network?
You could call that. You could say that we're the type of ad network that we've done what the agency should have done all those years ago, but the ad networks did instead.
How about a new term? I call you a supply side network.
Supply side network. Perfect. So let's stick with that.
Yeah.
So that doesn't change. And I think there was a lot of discussion on the previous panel about agencies becoming more programmatically enabled and starting to do a lot of that themselves. And that is absolutely true. We're seeing that as well. To some extent being supported by Group M in a central way, and in some cases setting those things up for clients, some cases setting it up within agencies. But that still creates an opportunity for Zaxis. In many cases, we're selling our Zaxis audiences into those sources of demand now rather than through an IO, just like any other media owner is. So actually, the model doesn't change. What changes is the process, and actually that suits us just fine. And so our focus going forward for the next year is sort of twofold, really. One is to continue to sell our, you could maybe call them generic or non-client specific segments, demographic segments or interest segments, the segments that have nothing to do with a specific client, programmatically and directly to the agencies or directly to clients, as we do as well now. And on the other side, as clients become much more knowledgeable about their data, as they start to invest in their own DMPs, as they start to see how they can leverage CRM data and other things, on the other side, play a more strategic role with connecting our DMP, which is a media behavior DMP. It doesn't pretend to be a client DMP. We don't make it available to clients. We don't want to make it available to clients. It wouldn't be a good client DMP. But to connect our media behavior DMP to their client DMP, because they don't have media behavior. So trying to find people like the people they already engage with is something we can help them with. So on the other side, we're having very interesting sort of deeper integration conversations with our clients about those sorts of data integrations. And that's again why I sort of come back to this point about the silos of data. I think it's very dangerous to sort of say it has to be my data and nothing else. I think it's about the connection of all those things.
So do you think your model's got longevity, right? If in 2015 we see more and more of the programmatic buying, and I'll put that in inverted commas because I think programmatic terms is bullshit. I think the more the programmatic buying becomes an agency specific piece, kind of baked into the media planning buying functionality of that agency, Mindshare or Mediacom. You're out there and you've got unique data points. You can aggregate supply, good supply as well, not bot-ridden supply, and then actually adds value to the buyer. So they either can plug into you as DSP, into you as a supply source, or you have a managed service.
Yeah. Does that have longevity? Absolutely. I mean, it already has longevity now. I mean, that's not a 2015 trend. That's a sort of continuity of a 2014 trend. And we grew Zaxis 22%. We have 21% more clients this year than last year. So we grew the business significantly while that trend was already happening. And I have no reason to believe that won't continue next year either. And I think some of the points you make there are very, very important because, the data is one differentiator. But if you ask me what one of the big trends in 2015 is going to be, I think it's, back to the question about publishers, it's actually inventory quality. I think there's been such a huge pendulum shift towards open exchanges. And, we see that we've never played in that space as much as people think we have. And right now, about 20% of our inventory comes from open RTB, open exchange buying. And that absolutely puts us in the right place for next year, I believe.
Okay. By the way, every point I make is very important, but it's for the record, so everyone knows that. Gareth, let's talk about mobile. Thank you, Casper. Let's talk about mobile.
You're welcome.
Mobile for me is, obviously a huge growth area. We've seen a lot of spend in Facebook growing their spend, but in terms of some of the agencies piling money into plans, that part of the business hasn't really grown. Right? I mean, where are we going to see the breaking point where agencies just kind of like, here's not a tick box in mobile, here's actual strategy, here's a media plan. We're gonna distribute significant spend to this channel. When's that going to happen? Will it never happen?
Well, listen, I think the winners in mobile are the Facebooks of this world, even Google to a certain degree. They unified their search auction about 2.5 years ago, and effectively, they saw their RPMs, their revenue per page, significantly decreasing as users moved to mobile, and they just said, fine, we'll unify the auction and you buy intent through Google, right? And maybe your ads go on mobile, maybe they go on desktop. Facebook's essentially done the same. I think there are a lot of buyers of mobile that don't realize they're necessarily buyers of mobile right now, and that helps lubricate the pipes and get spend across into mobile. There are, of course, those, the millennials and the InMobies and so forth, of the more traditional network models that are thinking about how they evolve, whether that's through acquiring programmatic capabilities. I think the barrier to entry for publishers in a programmatic world in mobile is significantly fewer barriers to entry. It's very easy to plug in an SDK that gives me an exchange integration. I'm an app developer of some random game. I don't really care. I don't have a direct sales force that I'm cannibalizing. So I think the challenge is that if you look where the directed spenders in mobile are, the King.coms spending $1 million a day, they've saturated the whole universe. If you speak to Angus at King, he says, spend my money on TV, right? So I think there's an interesting dynamic. There's the hardcore, cost per install, $2 download guys. They'll still be there, and they need to be smarter around how they segment their cohorts and think about user acquisition based on lifetime value, and they need data and technology to do that. They'll need to shift away from the blind ad networks to get control of their media spend, control of their data. But I think the winners are those that can help, frankly, blur the gap and unify the audience irrespective of the device. Obviously, we try and do that from a probabilistic perspective at OutBrain, providing technology that unifies across all exchange inventory, across all supply and data points. So then, of course, you've got the walled gardens that have much better data than we have, right? They've got deterministic login data. So I think the guys that make it easy to buy without that specialism makes sense. But then on the flip side, you have Dentsu acquiring Fetch this year for $50 million, something like that, a rumored £30 million. So maybe we'll see, maybe we'll see Somo picked up in a few of these specialists. But
are we like, if I was a publisher and if I was IDG, I'd be going, that's all great, but I'm not fucking Facebook and I'm not Google, I don't have that data. So is the tipping point for mobile going to be like video, where real brand spend gets in there and you can make serious CPMs? Because you could have 100 million impressions in mobile, but like you're hitting like fucking 1 penny CPM. How are you going to support a team?
Come on, 10 cents, 10 to 20 cents. Come on.
If you're an Israeli ad network, that's your sound like, Matomi, only joking, Matomi, great company. But we need to have a sweet spot where publishers and agencies sort of benefit.
So I think the biggest challenge, we speak to a lot of publishers, premium pubs. I think we're interested to see what the likes of Pandora and Spotify, these kind of guys do. The vast majority of their audiences are mobile only. They have crossover on desktop. They have login data, but it's a mobile audience. These guys are paranoid about pushing their inventory into the open exchange. They realize that, frankly, the CPM yields aren't there. They also know that if they start building out private marketplaces, pushing out their IDFA and Android IDs into those exchange environments, the buyer can sit there, spend 5-10 grand, whatever, hoover up the data and buy on the open exchange. Again, going back to that point. So, I agree with you, data wars, right? I think it's about smart data ownership. Publishers realize they're like, well, why the hell am I going to monetize and push my inventory programmatically into mobile? Why am I even going to build out a mobile sales force if all my data gets pillaged and gets pushed out elsewhere? So I think, frankly, it's a tough space for mobile forward publishers. Think of Mail Online, 70% of their audience base in digital is mobile, the vast majority is in-app. Solutions for smart in-app monetization and yield are going to take a while. I don't think it's fundamentally there yet, but if publishers control their audience, control the flow of their data, start to invest in the tools to store that data, to enrich it, maybe the answer is not private marketplaces or open exchange, maybe it's good old direct sales forces.
Okay, we've got like 10 minutes left. We have one more question before we sort of open out the crowd. And we have the gift giving sort of session. This is my favorite part of the show. So let's talk. Our final question would be the Lumascape. I think this is the final year that the Lumascape disappears. I think is it a case that the lines between buy side and sell side are disappearing? We see Google obviously has the full stack. Everybody wants a full stack publisher to advertiser. We even have companies like Rubicon, who are publishers focused, building DSPs for, not controversial because it's actually public knowledge, isn't that right? It is public knowledge. But it's not criticism.
We'll edit that
out. There's only like 500
these hundreds of people,
they all know. Are we seeing a blurring the lines between buy side and sell side? Well, church and state are finally becoming one.
Let's face it, the Lumascape is a completely incorrect and outdated representation of our industry, right? Terry Kawaja must laugh at us for the fact that we all sort of sit around at conferences and point to it and say, look at the complexity and the data leakage and the value leakage. And all
made
that
him
sort
a
of
lot of money though. So
well, but he asked the question because I ran out of questions. So,
but he uses
he
uses it to highlight acquisition and M&A opportunities. I mean, and if you look at it, I've actually just asked our team to do an analysis on this for me. 40% of the companies have been acquired. So almost half don't even exist today, right? So and this is just the display ecosystem. If you could do the same for mobile and the video one, you'd probably see just as much. It's actually interesting if you look at which companies are acquiring which ones, because if you group them, so the agencies tend to acquire other agencies, right? With the exception of WPP that have ventured out across to 24/7.
WPP, innovative thinkers.
The technology companies have bought ad networks quite a lot, and other tech companies. The ad networks have bought technology companies, but actually the one that's really ventured out across, and Google's bought lots of, one company in each box, except for the ones where they clearly don't need to, like the DMP box and the analytics box. And then the one that's actually ventured the furthest across is the publishers, who've sort of bought companies across the whole ecosystem, trying to get closer to the clients. So I agree with you. I mean, I think all of these acquisitions, all of these players are designed to get us to where this industry's been talking about being for a long time, which is really delivering value rather than just point solutions, right? Like not just being a publisher, but actually being able to help solve a marketer's problems. Not just being an agency buying media, but actually looking at a marketer's proper marketing challenges and adding value to that. And that also means that business models will change, you know, and the idea of, you know, you've got an agent on one side and a publisher on the other side and lots of sort of bits in the middle. Also, it doesn't work anymore. You know, everyone's reinventing their business models and they're becoming more value and delivery based, and that's where they should be. You know, that's a much better place for them to be for marketers. So again, coming to your point about longevity, I think Zaxis as a business has always had a model about being paid for delivery and performance, and we'll maintain to do that because that's the right place to be.
I believe in Zaxis too.
Thank you, Kieran.
So carrying on from what Casper just said, so you know, if we look at, and we speak to a lot of marketing companies and CMOs with the marketing cloud proposition, and really the main theme I'm seeing is the change from campaign-centric thinking to client-centric thinking. And that's driving this whole massive evolution in the desire to activate data and first-party data, because it's no longer about, you know, campaign plan IO by IO. It's more about, you know, what is my customer doing? Where are they again across the stage of their journey? How can I connect them across different devices, across different, you know, different environments that they're in? And with that, I think that's why you're seeing this consolidation happen. And if you look at, you know, brands themselves, they're even stepping into this space. They are becoming publishers.
Yeah.
You know, they're starting to engage their audiences, their users in completely different ways.
And they're building their own tech as well.
They're building their own tech, and so I think it's a real shift that we're moving away from, you know, brands competing. It's not just silos, but brands competing on things like price or product, and now really starting to compete on customer experience. And to do that properly, you really need to have that kind of end-to-end infrastructure that can ensure that you're connected in a relative and timely manner with your user wherever they are. And I think that's the trend that's driving the changes to the Lumascape.
We're like, I mean, is it the case that we're in a hybrid model type entity now? Like publishers now are agencies are buying publishers, data companies buy media companies. It's kind of like this kind of coming together. It's almost consolidation in the entire. It's a circle. It's like a blob.
Listen, I think everyone's just trying
it's the blob scale.
Luma blob.
Luma blob.
Listen, you have the left and the right. You've got the buyer and you've got the seller, right?
Why does the buyer and the seller just become one? And now we have no problem. We've loads of money. Everybody gets rich.
Who would take you for lunch, though?
Yeah, that's true.
It would be a little more boring. But, you know, if you think about it, everyone in the middle is just trying to optimize efficiency. I think in a world where, you know, getting rid of the parallels of the financial trading world, you know, the fixed price of the asset is not the same in digital marketing because the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and data is the weapon that allows you to price that asset, right? And you know, like other forms of commodities, you know, an ad impression is available for that, you know, millisecond in time, and if it's not used, it's wasted. So you've got, you know, a ton of people in the middle trying to increase efficiency through whatever means, transparent, you know, non-transparent, technology-driven, ARB-driven, whatever it may be. But the bottom line is you want a marketer who knows their customer, hopefully, and wants to get to know them better. And you've got a publisher who knows his audience and want to reach them with a buyer, right? So I think fundamentally the lines blur only because everyone's focus on the same fundamental goal, which is understanding the consumer. Whoever can best understand the consumer is going to win. Chances are it's the guy that's or the lady who has the relationship with the consumer. You know, I'm saying this from a tech perspective. You know, our job is to try and create value to the data owner. I think what becomes interesting is when you can, through technology, as a self-professed middleman, through technology empower the person who's already got the relationship with the consumer to know more about the consumer. And then you move away from a conversation of what price is this asset, this tangible asset that's being bought in real time, which is an ad impression, through to a conversation of who's my consumer, how do I reach them, what's the product, what's the service, you know, why does location, time of day, device, behavioral habit impact the way I should communicate with them? You know, should I change my reach and frequency as a publisher and stop targeting at certain times of day? And for me, that's exciting about the industry we're in. Everyone in the middle is hopefully trying to get to a point where the buyer and seller better know the consumer. And the guys that aren't and are just trying to arb and get, you know, cents on the dollar off the middle, then I don't see a space for them. And eventually they'll die.
I totally agree with that. And I think what's really interesting is, because we're Zaxis, I always get to sit on lots of panels with the WFA and all that sort of stuff because, we like to have arguments with each other.
What, with the advertisers?
With the advertisers. And, it's amazing still how often I hear, one of the big problems in this industry is that $1 invested on one side is only 40, gets received as 40 cents on the other side. But the thing is, if you want to invest, if you want to invest $1 with a publisher, that your agency will happily invest $1 with your publisher. Yeah. That is what they are there for.
Could you go out and give $1 if I was an advertiser, like give $1 to the Guardian, right? Here's some fluffy brand metrics. Would that happen? Really?
Yeah. Of course, really? If you talk to an agency, that's called a media plan. That's what agencies do. But if you're trying to do something programmatically, you don't need to go via all those companies in that ecosystem because you're not using data. You don't have to think about brand safety controls. You don't have to think about the creative strategy. All that sort of technology-enabled creative, like all those things add value. Is my point, right? So it's not just value leakage. If you want to play in the programmatic space, all those companies actually do stuff. Right? And if you don't think it's valuable, then just buy the media directly off a publisher. I mean, there's no one stopping you doing that. It's the way the world worked for most of its time, and this programmatic thing is recent. But don't tell me you're only 40 cents to get to the publisher because that's not the nature of that particular buy.
Okay, you heard it here first. 40 cents is not good to publisher. £1 goes to him. Let's open up the questions. One question before we give out presents. Surely there's one question. Just identify yourself there, please.
Project.
But for the record, I love the Rubicon project. No way, it's all about the Rubicon.
I guess we can't have a kind of look into 2015 without asking, excluding, I guess, Google, Facebook, Yahoo, who are going to be the most exciting companies to watch in the space in 2015 and why?
Apart from Facebook. I think Rubicon for sure.
Are they sponsored by any chance?
And Zaxis, obviously they're sponsored too.
Are we?
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Apart from your own company, do not mention your own company.
No, I wouldn't dare do that. So I'm excited about vertical players that have data. They have a relationship with the consumer. They have intent data. They're going to package that up. So I think we're going to see. I'm sure plenty of other people will predict this. So I'm not pretending to be clever here, but I think Rakuten, Alibaba, eBay are all aggressively working towards unifying that data. So I think the vertical point solution. How will they open up that data and inventory? I think is going to be what's most interesting. Will they do it in a black box? Will they do it in a more open way? I fundamentally agree back to Casper's comments on AOL. The walled garden only works if you've got a very pretty garden, right? No one wants to pay a ticket to go into a crappy garden with a guy, absolutely. So whoever can make that garden attractive is going to make a lot of money. So I think that's exciting. And then on the flip side, publishers that are sat on data assets and particularly in the mobile world, so Spotify and Pandora for me are ones to watch. I think they're going to come back with a vengeance and do some exciting things.
Susanna, you can mention SAP, Salesforce, IBM.
Well, you just said mine for me.
He's gone through most of the companies, isn't he?
So I definitely think that there's going to be significant more consolidation coming from the enterprise players. One that has yet to really show its hand is IBM. So I think they're definitely one to watch. They're probably sitting in the background and watching, what's happening so far. Oracle have tipped into the ad tech space with BluePie. Adobe are there. Salesforce are stepping in there. So I definitely think IBM will be making some big moves.
What will they buy? What will they want to buy?
Well, either they buy around the media or they buy into the media, and I think those are the two. Those are the two big areas for investment. So either they buy marketing stack that it connects into that, enables their clients, their customers to do that, or they start to consolidate actually into the brands.
Scott Brinker, who spoke at ATS London, was pretty hot on Microsoft making a big play in marketing tech this year. And he actually said that because Microsoft is focused now on enterprise and their whole things about the cloud, etc., he thinks someone like Marketo or LinkedIn would be big play for them. Do you think that's possible that your old employers might make a big plunge?
So I think it's possible. I think judged on their track record, though, I'm not sure how beneficial it will be for whatever company they did acquire.
Controversial.
So you're trying to say is Microsoft's done a good job of M&A.
So I think Microsoft had a great opportunity with their advertising business, and if we look at where it is today, I think they've lost that opportunity. So it's questionable whether they want to continue to lean into that space.
Will they divest that next year? Does it disappear?
Get out of media.
I think if you look at the culling that they're doing across their sales teams and across their products, I think they're not too far off that.
Yeah. So big prediction: Microsoft to get out of media for next year, 2015. Susanna.
You heard it here first. I would say, I mean, rather than being specific around some of those, I mean, there's some really interesting ideas there. But I think the industry will arrange itself more and more, not necessarily through acquisitions, but also through partnerships. And I don't mean to say, listen, we work with so-and-so, but actually deep integrated partnerships with data and everything else around a sort of almost like an anyone but Google kind of alternative ecosystem. I think there's so much concern about...
Is that an internal mantra within...
No,
it isn't, but...
Does Martin Sorrell go around in the onesie, anything but...
No, but I mean, you see so much more. You do see so much more concern. I mean, you saw all the press again this week in the US around the concern about just the scale and the power that Google has across the ecosystem. You can see the EU reacting to it.
Well, that's the next question I'm going to ask. Is this the year that Google is broken up by the EU?
I mean, the problem is the EU can't break Google up. So I mean, it's just. Well, they can't. I mean,
they
have zero power.
They have zero power to actually do it. They can suggest please to break it up, but
politicians pass that amendment can force the EU Commission to act on Google.
Well, I mean, they may do. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't.
Right. So you don't think it's going to happen?
I think that it's a complicated thing to break up.
I would buy ad tech. I would buy Google's ad tech business right here.
You would buy?
Raise the money. I would raise it. Seriously.
I did read your article about that.
I would buy AdSense.
But governments break up monopolies where they're abusing their monopolistic power, right? There is an argument, not necessarily I agree. Peter Thiel spoke recently in his book about the value of every business, the goal of every business is to become a monopoly. At the end of the day, Google has to continually innovate, right? I'm not going to be overly protective, right? Even though they still, I've said publicly, pay my mortgage, thanks to my dear wife.
Acquire me, please.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I don't. Is that the book? Is it like the Google story?
I've got a Google. How to be acquired by Google.
Yeah, that'd be
Don't
good.
slag them off in public.
Try not to. I've got to remember that one.
But they own 96% of the search market. They basically own ad tech in Europe.
Because they got the best product. It's really simple to type in Bing into a browser. Danny's nodding. Get in there, Danny.
I agree with you. Like, the consumers have chosen that search engine as the dominant search engine, the same way they're choosing Chrome as Chrome. Like, I don't want to use IE, I don't want to use Mozilla, I want to use the Chrome browser. And to the point around breaking it up, like, everyone keeps talking around Google, like, getting broken up, like, fine, break Google up, but then you've got to break Yahoo up, Microsoft, and every other site that's got local search linked towards its data. So
it's hard.
It kind of works.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is, you're right.
It's anti-innovation. The consumer loses if you break up what are the most powerful, compelling propositions at a consumer level to get access to information, to trade, etc.
So we all agree, we love Google, especially. Okay, it's time for the gifts, the gift giving thing. So I'll put my hat on. Let's see who's coming out of the box first. Woo, it's exciting, isn't it? Woo! Come on. Jesus, what a bad crowd. I'll get the next one.
I blame the moderator.
Yeah, probably. For the person who seeks to eliminate fake robots. You go.
Is that me?
Yeah.
I didn't realise that. I like it.
Are you sure?
We seek to eliminate fake robots.
Right.
I love click-forward. What are you talking about? Look at that. Shiny robots.
Yeah, we didn't even mention bots.
To hang on my Christmas tree. Get in there.
This is for Casper. For one of the our favorite top 10 hairdos in ad tech. Open it up.
I'm opening it up. I'm dreading what's in here. Fantastic. Look at that. A pink cone.
Yeah.
Curlers? And some souffle. Volume and shine.
Everybody in this room would love to stroke Casper's hair. Don't fucking lie to me. To Susanna. for the person with the biggest cloud in the industry. And by the way, there's lots of clouds, so you have to get the theme of this present, right? Keep up, people. There you go. It's an umbrella because there's lots of clouds and it rains.
Yay!
Thank you, panelists, and that was Straight Talk TV. That was the end of our Christmas edition, end of New Year edition. So we'll see you next year, and free booze. Shame we weren't here. It's a free bar.